morning. Welcome to Coffee with Caregivers, a new program of the National Foster Parent Association. Hope you're enjoying the episodes. It's a commitment that we made to help you be better informed on a regular basis about hot topics that are being discussed in foster care around the country, and certainly how can caregivers have an impact on all those hot topics. So we're really excited today that we're going to be talking with two wonderful people from Missouri that are going to talk to us about the needs for youth who identify as LGBTQ, as well as what we as caregivers can do to help the kids that need to be in care and help that to be successful for them. June is National LGBTQ Month, and we would have been derelict without having an episode for you on that topic. Before I talk to you a little bit about my coffee cup today, I do want to introduce the two people who will introduce themselves a little later. We have Jennifer Townsend, and we have Seth Middleton. And there you are.
Hello.
Two wonderful, young, happy faces. And I always see the young, happy faces because that means there's somebody who's got a lot of years ahead of them to advocate. Not old like me, and the years are waning. Now you get all ahead of you yet, and that's pretty darn exciting. At least for me, it is. And I hope for you. So let me tell you a little bit about this cup. It says "Saved by Grace and Coffee." There it is, "Saved by Grace and Coffee." I actually bought this cup for myself years ago. I worked in Austin, but I lived a long way away. And so it was an hour and a half to get to Austin to my office and an hour and a half to get home every day. And that was if there wasn't a big accident on Interstate. Right? And there always was. It seemed like. And so I was on the road for 3 hours a day minimum just to go to and from work. And I did that for, I don't know, 10 or 12 years. And the longer I did it, the more I realized that it truly was by the grace of God that I wasn't killed in any one of those trips, or that I hadn't killed somebody because I fell asleep at the wheel or something, and coffee, because it's what kept me awake morning and evening to get to and from work. So that's a brief story about that cup, but it's not in the grocery store that I thought, you know what, that is the only reason why I'm back and forth. It took me about 5 more years after getting this cup to actually realize that, the risk was just more than we could handle at that point. And it was time to move from our rural and a home we loved for 30 years and retire from fostering, which is when we retired from fostering, and moved to Austin, Texas. And what a big move for some country bumpkins who were both raised out on the farm, and always lived out in the country and raised our kids out there. And we moved to town. We moved to the city. Stressful move for us. It was the right move for us. And but it ended our active participation as being a foster family because we didn't have any supports here. We had no family here, those kinds of things. But what it did was gave me kind of a new lease on life, because I could say whatever I felt needed to be said, and nobody could hold placements over my head, placements over my head, or find some infraction I've been doing that I wasn't meeting some standard, or just create havoc. I was free to say and be the advocate that I really believe was God's intention in the beginning when this all started, was to be an advocate on a state and national level. So change always comes hard, but it's important. That cup helped me get through 5 years of safe driving until I could just get brave enough to make that decision to move our family and start over in the big city. So that's my story. So Jennifer, would you like to introduce yourself first and tell us about your cup?
I definitely can. My name is Jennifer Townsend. I am the Director of Recruitment Programs at FosterAdopt Connect. We have multiple locations, but I work out of our Independence, Missouri office, which is our headquarters. I am over a couple of recruitment programs. I have also leaded what we call our HRC, our Human Rights Campaign committee for the last few years and helped us continue to get reaccredited. And the last 2 accreditation cycles, we have been fortunate enough to receive the highest level of recognition from HRC's All Children, All Family accreditation program. That is the Innovator Tier. So we are seen as one of the nation's innovators when it comes to supporting LGBTQ youth, foster and adoptive parents, as well as staff and child welfare. So I'm really proud of that work. I live here in Missouri with my wife, and we continue to foster. We also just adopted 3 beautiful children in February. So it's a pretty good life over here. I did bring my favorite mug. I woke up like this. It is from a Beyonce song. I absolutely love Beyonce. I love what she does for communities. I love her music. And so it makes me happy. Also, when you see me, I usually do look a lot like how I woke up because I just can't seem to put in the effort that I used to. So it's accurate.
I think that given the COVID-19 and staying home, we're all
Yeah. Yeah.
we all
I
look
just
different
had,
now than we used to, right?
I
Things just importance of certain things just don't seem to be as important anymore.
I completely agree.
I agree. And so learning a lot about myself during this period of time, and certainly my family that I live with. And right now it's all good. So that I'm happy to be able to say that.
I think I'm going to stay this way. I think that, yeah, I think this is the new me. So
much more low maintenance and
for sure.
Frees up some time that you didn't have before. That's for sure.
Exactly.
You know yourself. And I think that's important now. I think we're all getting to know ourselves a little better, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have a picture of who we wanted to be, but is that who we really are?
Yeah.
We're learning who those are. All right. So your cohort here is Seth Middleton. So Seth, would you introduce yourself?
Absolutely. I'm Seth. Like Jennifer, I work at FosterAdopt Connect. I am originally from St. Louis, but transplanted to KC about 5 years ago, I guess, after my partner and I graduated college. So I work as an advocate at FosterAdopt Connect, which I really just fell into, but I love the work. And I was lucky enough to be able to join the HRC committee with Jennifer. I think it was my first month at FosterAdopt Connect. And I worked pretty closely with Jennifer for a couple of years during our accreditation cycles and got to know the other team members, got to know FAC really well. And this year I was thrilled to be asked by Jennifer to step up as the next chair. So I'm excited for the next accreditation cycle and to work with FosterAdopt Connect on making sure that we're the best and most affirmative agency in the area. Like I said, live in a little outside of Kansas City with my partner. We got married last year, and we've been together about 9 years. And we have one son who we adopted last year also. Last year was a big year for us. And he is 6, and we have been fostering for 4 years, but we're going to close our license this summer and just focus on the one guy. We've also got 3 cats and a dog and a tortoise. I think that's everybody that lives here. And my mug, it says "Be kind." Let's see. There you go. It's like hand stamped from Kind Coffee in Estes Park. We try to go to Colorado about once a year. It's like once every other year, maybe. we love to hike and we love the mountains. And so that's a really important place for us. So Kind Coffee, I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but they just have really good coffee in Estes Park.
That's good to know. Estes Park is certainly beautiful.
It is, yeah.
We used to go to a Christian camp up in that area. It was called Sky Ranch.
Oh.
The Poudre River Canyon,
Oh.
Collins, just so incredibly beautiful.
Right. There's nothing that beats it.
Park. It's just amazing. I don't know about Kind Coffee, so I'm going to have to check that out. I assume you can order it, right? Do you get to order it during the year, and do they ship it to you?
No, we just go there when we're there.
How awful.
I know. That's really why we go back.
What's your excuse for going back, huh?
Yeah, that's right.
Just like how beautiful it is. Well, that's good. And congratulations, by the way, on your new appointment as chair.
Oh, thank you. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I can tell. That's good. So let's get down to business. The reason really why we're here to talk today. And we know there's a crisis for youth who identify as LGBTQ in the foster care system. And it's universal. It's not one state or another state or one county and a state. It's pretty much universal from everything I can see and that I hear and read and experience. And, my time in fostering was 27 years of being a foster parent, but it started in 1974. So, during that period of time, we actually had two young men, 14 and 15, who joined our family two different times, but about a year apart. So we actually had them at the same time for a couple of years. They were fairly long-termers. They stayed until graduated.
Oh, wow.
And when they came, we didn't have a clue that they might be LGBTQ. I don't think anybody knew. I think one of them did, but I don't think the other one did. And so they kind of found themselves while they were living with us. And we had to adapt. Mm-hmm. We had no training. Nobody ever said anything about anything. I don't know how to talk about this. I don't know what to say. I don't know if I'm seeing what I think I'm seeing. What does that mean? Should I bring it up? Should I wait for them to bring it up? It was a confusing time, and we had to kind of struggle with what is our role in them helping to find who they are, who they really are. And I just know that the older of the two boys was the first day of his senior year in high school. And he came out of his bedroom to go get on the school bus because we lived in the country. And I thought, well, he looks different today. So I kind of did a double take. And he had on makeup, foundation, eyeshadow, eyeliner, the whole 9 yards. And so I said, whoa, I haven't seen you dressed like that for school before. Well, I just decided to be me. What a brave young man that was, right? And he went to school and he paid some price for it. He got bullied, he got teased, but he also had students who stood up for him.
Okay. And
teachers who stood up for him. And I'm so grateful that happened because it was a little white, rural school district, and nobody ever talked about anybody that was LGBTQ. And if they were, nobody knew it, right?
Right.
And so we learned, I guess, the hard way, but maybe it was a good way because we had to keep seeking information. We had to keep asking questions. I was so thankful that I worked with quite a few people who identified as LGBTQ, and I go to work and I would just, okay, tell me what to do now. What do I say? How do I ask the question? What do I need to say? Do you need? Because I don't know what you need, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Given the time that it's very different now than then, I'm so happy that we are addressing this, not just for the youth in care, but certainly for our caregivers as well. And that, hopefully we can come up with a system that embraces everybody, no matter who they are, and that we can have caregivers who do the same thing. So I know that oftentimes, we don't have a choice necessarily of what families they join, just because there aren't enough families. And so exceptions have to be made. And I think it's important that all caregivers hear the dialogue today and understand their role in meeting the needs of kids, whatever those needs are, that join their family. So I'm going to open it up to you to kind of talk about those things that you feel are the crisis within the system. I know you've got some data that you'd like to share, and then we'll get to the part about the caregivers.
I'd love to. I also want to point out that we hear from caregivers who have been doing this for a really long time and hear similar stories to what you just shared. And I think it's something that it's important for us to remember and to understand is how much change with the introduction of the internet into how we do how we support youth, how we support one another. There, like you said, if there wasn't training out there, where could you turn? We are very fortunate now to live in a time where LGBTQ youth and adults can connect to one another, a time where their loved ones can seek information that can help to affirm their loved ones' identities. So I like to keep that in mind, because I think for some in my generation and younger, it's difficult to understand or recall a time without internet, but it certainly, was there and made it difficult to share that information. So, so we have really come a long way in the LGBTQ community, but I do think it's important for maybe those who are not as familiar with the reality of being an LGBTQ youth in care. It's important for you to know what that experience is like. LGBTQ kiddos come into care for many of the same reasons that non-LGBTQ kiddos come into care. So, abuse, neglect, issues under those umbrellas. But on top of that, we do have kiddos coming into care because of family rejection, being placed out of the home. Sometimes they come into care, like many kids, for one reason, but then when you get the full story, it might be something more, and sometimes that something more is related to their identity. Once they are in care, they continue to experience a lot of trauma. And we know from the push towards more trauma-informed care that all children experience trauma when they come into foster care, not only because of what occurred to bring them into care, but also just being in care. That is magnified for most of our children who are LGBTQ identifying and in care. One of the stats I wanted to share was that in a study out of Los Angeles County, they found that 78% of LGBTQ youth were removed or ran away from their foster placement because of the caregiver's hostility towards their sexual orientation and gender identity. So 78% of those LGBTQ youth not only experienced the trauma that brought them into care, the trauma of coming into care, but also the trauma of being rejected by another family who was tasked with caring for them. Also, a disproportionate number of kids in care are members of the LGBTQ community. Furthermore, a disproportionate number of LGBTQ youth in care are placed in congregate care, so group homes, residential facilities. That same study said that 56% of LGBTQ youth in out-of-home care spend some time without stable housing, because they felt safer on the street than they did in their congregate care facility. And when we ask why that might be, we receive more statistics such as 100% of the LGBTQ youth surveyed shared that they had experienced verbal harassment in their congregate care facility, and 70% had experienced physical violence in those group homes. These are staggering statistics when, again, we consider that we brought the child into care because they were in an unsafe situation. We are tasked with keeping them safe, and we are failing these kids. So I just think that when you consider those stats, that we need to be doing a better job protecting our LGBTQ youth. Certainly all of foster care has some areas that could use, reform, constant reform. My heart just is very focused on how we help LGBTQ youth, including how we can help the caregivers who, would love to be more affirming, but maybe like you do not have the access to the training or the access to the supports when they need them. But our kiddos are in crisis. They're more likely to be homeless after aging out of care. They're more likely to depend on sex work to survive. And so, this really needs to be a priority in foster care reform.
Absolutely. The human trafficking piece of this, and it just by itself is mind-blowing when you look at the statistics and the reasons why some of these youth are in that life. And they just really to the point where they didn't have a choice. It was either not survive or do that and survive, if you can call that survival. And so we have a lot of work to do. Seth, you have some thoughts about any of that?
I do. We know that LGBT youth are more likely to be diagnosed with a mental health issue. We know that LGBTQ youth are more likely to attempt suicide or at least think about it. So things like that. There was a Trevor Project. The Trevor Project is a great organization if you've never encountered them. But they did a study last year on mental health and LGBTQ youth in care. And it was, considering that it came out in 2020, 2019 maybe, it was very troubling. We talk all the time about, the amazing advancements we've made, the training that's available, the resources, the connection, and the fact that there are still, more than half of LGBT youth, particularly trans youth, particularly youth of color, that are struggling with suicidality and self-harm. That's very concerning to me. That says that, we're doing a lot, but there's more that needs to be done. Another statistic that we found, and we've seen this day to day in our work, is that LGBT youth are less likely to find permanency. They're less likely to go home to mom and dad or whoever was their original caregiver. And then they're also less likely to be adopted or find guardianship. A lot of LGBTQ youth age out of the system. And then not only do they not have a natural family to support them because of their identity, they don't have a permanent adoptive family either. So again, that's something that we're working on. Jennifer actually does amazing work with this population. So
that's wonderful. So I know that the organization that you work for has a tremendous leader and has done really incredible work for many years. This is not a one-shot wonder type organization. And the organization has much respect for the work that you do in all aspects of foster care, but in particular, your work on behalf of the LGBTQ community. And that needs to be recognized and certainly appreciated by everyone who has a heart for making sure that all of the people who are involved in the foster care system, whatever role, is being treated with respect and dignity, right? And that's the way we should be treating everybody, regardless of what their need might be or how they may be different. And I know that, it gets tough. And I shared with y'all earlier today in an email that I have a granddaughter who came out, and it was after she was 18, and everybody was shocked. She had just was amazing at hiding that. She's 25 now. She's married, and her wife is just compliments her perfectly. I tell you, such a perfect. They're opposites as you can be, but they are the best. And so they're lots of fun because it's like, what are we going to get next? You know, I love them dearly, but it opened, depending on how close this comes to each person themselves and their family. I learned through my own life that you all of a sudden I needed to be even more aware, right? I needed more information. I needed better ways to explain to other family members why this beautiful young woman was the exact same person she was the day before. There's one new wrinkle there, yeah, one more thing, but everything else about her was exactly the same person that we've loved dearly for all those years, right? But it seemed like this one thing made people question her,
Mhm.
who she is, and it broke my heart. It was so unfair. Made me reflect on those two young men I told you about that lived with us each for a little over 3 years. And did we do them justice? Did we not? Probably not, because we just didn't know enough.
Mhm.
But there wasn't the internet then. I can tell you, I couldn't use a computer then. So if it wasn't an electric typewriter, I couldn't even people. So yes, times have changed. And so that's a good thing. Sometimes I don't like all this technology, but other times it's incredible that it's what we have, right? And to say that I've had to learn to use it, whether I wanted to or not. So let's get to the caregiver part. What roles, there's many I'm sure, do the caregivers need to be responsible for? And if you have some ideas or some suggestions about where to find better information on those kinds of things, that'd be great.
Yeah, certainly. I think one thing that we do at FosterAdopt Connect that I really appreciate about our licensing department is that when we meet with a family who would like to become a licensed foster parent or a relative, kinship provider, adoptive resource, one of the things they do is fill out a child data sheet that shares, demographics about the types of children they feel would be a good match for their family and that they would be a good match for. In addition to that, we have questions that are specific to parenting the LGBTQ community. We try to assess not a yes or no to parenting LGBTQ youth, but rather what is the family's comfort level with parenting different identities. Because some people might tell you, I'm not comfortable. I don't think that I would be an appropriate placement for an LGBTQ youth. Some might say, I have been waiting for this opportunity my whole life. I can't wait to parent an LGBTQ youth. But what we found is that many foster parents, especially in our area at least, fall somewhere in the middle where they are very open to parenting an LGBTQ youth, but they would like more information on how to do that in a way that is affirmative. They need someone to go to with their questions. They're, scared of doing something wrong. And so that opens up the conversation with the licensing workers about how we might be able to support them in parenting an LGBTQ youth so that we can make the best placements possible, at least for the LGBTQ youth who are, out. Many children who, something that I think is important for caregivers to remember is that you are potentially going to take placement of a youth who is LGBTQ. They might not be out when they come to you. You might take placement of a 4-year-old or a baby and adopt that child, and they might come out to you later. So while we do keep the information from that survey in mind when we're placing LGBTQ youth, we do also really try to encourage all of our foster and adoptive parents to take some of the training that FosterAdopt Connect supplies on how to parent LGBTQ youth. I know that we have some specific tips and guidance that we're going to share, but before I forget, I would also encourage your listeners to check out Human Rights Campaign, All Children, All Family, their webinars. They have a lot of webinars on a lot of different topics, but they have a whole track of trainings that are specific to parenting LGBTQ youth that I think would become very handy for your listeners. So.
Excellent. Seth?
I completely agree. I do encourage everyone to check out All Children, All Families, like Jennifer said. Their webinars are free. You can also look and see if there are accredited organizations near you where you could do training or pursue licensure or even just ask questions. One thing that I think Jennifer touched on that I really emphasize is that you never know. Just like when any foster child comes to you, you don't know really anything about them other than what's on a piece of paper or in an email. So you may, like Jennifer said, take placement of a 4-year-old, and when that child's 14, they may come out to you. Even if you said no on your questionnaire, that doesn't preclude you from ending up being a parent to an LGBT person, just like being a bio parent. So I think it's really important to, of course, keep an open mind, but to always remember, Irene, like you said, that the child's, it's just a child. It's just a youth, just somebody who wants to be loved and needs to know that they're safe, and that you'll always be there for them. So it doesn't change anything if they come out to you, if you, have a guess about their identity. It doesn't change anything about them except, like you said, just one more thing on their personality list. Even if you do not have an LGBTQ child, or even if you are not currently fostering, it's always good to keep up on the issues. If you type LGBTQ into Google and look up the news, there's not always a lot of good news, but sometimes there is. And it's good to understand, have at least a basic understanding of terminology. I know it's hard. I'm 27 and I can barely keep up with terminology. I feel like it's completely changed since I was in college, but at least understand what to do when you don't understand what somebody identifies as, or if you hear a pronoun that you've never heard before, you're always free to ask, how do I use that? Can you use that in a sentence? Be curious, but respectful, I think, is always important.
Yeah, I think educating yourself is crucial. I think part of that education, as it is with most topics, part of that education cycle is to use that education to check in on yourself, check in on any biases that you may have in parenting and caring for an LGBTQ youth, and then seeking more education about what you can do to be better. I think a lot of caregivers reach out to us and they're very concerned with having the right words or knowing the statistics that I shared with you guys earlier, but ultimately that has less to do with parenting an LGBTQ kiddo. The focus on that is really parenting. How do you adequately support and care for any child who's in your home? Make them feel welcome, make sure that they have access to things that make them happy and that make them feel like they belong, not only to your home, but to their community. It's very similar for LGBTQ youth. If you have an LGBTQ youth in your home, it's important that not only are you educating yourself, but you're providing them opportunities for them to educate themselves, opportunities for them to connect with, if there is one, a local LGBTQ community. If you're in more rural settings, that can be more difficult, but luckily there are lots of opportunities online to meet virtually, just like we're meeting now, so that they know that they're not alone, that they know that there are kids like them out there. I think it's really important for caregivers to recognize that if they were to reject these youth, how layered that rejection would be. But also, if they were to accept the youth, how important and path altering that also could be, given the rejection that they may have felt from their family, but that they certainly have felt out in society, because to one degree or another, all members of the LGBTQ community, speaking as one myself, have felt some degree of rejection within society. So it's really important for them to have deep and meaningful connections with adults who are going to accept them just as they are,
Right.
and see them even more in their identity. Their identity is important. I really am very proud of my identity as a queer woman, but I certainly think I'm more than that, and I think other members of the society do too. So
Yeah, I agree. One of the hardest things for us was when they wanted to have a boyfriend.
Mhm.
Nobody else we knew had boys having boyfriends. But it's the normal adolescent. These kids,
Right.
14, then 15, then 16, then 17.
uh-huh.
I mean, that's part of growing up, is handling those romantic
Mm-hmm.
opportunities, and learning how about relationships and which ones are good for you and which ones might not be, and that sort of thing. And boy, were we in uncharted waters when it came to that, right? And so that's probably one of the places where we messed up the most, I would think. Although in talking with these young men later, they said, no, you let us be who we were. And I wanted them to be safe. And we knew that, they said, and that you didn't treat us really any different than you did the girls or the other boys in the family. So I guess we did better than we thought we did. But I mean, they stayed with us the whole time so they could go through school and didn't run, because we were treating them with respect. I just know that it was a stress for us as the parents, because we took our commitment to every child who joined our family very seriously, and put some pressure on us to keep trying to learn.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece, and like you said, you felt disrespected sometimes too, is as these young men started feeling more comfortable with kind of being who they needed to be, not overtly walking around saying, hey, like me, I'm gay or whatever, but just being who they were, it became more evident in different ways for each of them, because they were very different. And I was concerned about our church.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we were a rural German community. I'm like, okay, are
Mm-hmm.
they to be accepting a congregation, lots of old people, on
Mm-hmm.
my age
Right.
now, 70s and 80s, besides the younger families. Was that going to be a problem? And it wound up, it wasn't. And I was so pleased about that. Now, one of the young men kept getting himself in trouble, but it hadn't anything to do with his LGBTQ. He liked to go in the office and steal the Sunday school collection.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was kind of his thing, and we caught him. Finally, now we knew who was always doing it, and didn't believe him when he said he had to get out of church and go to the bathroom anymore. But he did the kid the stuff. He did stuff that happened.
Kids do. Mm-hmm.
That's what he got his
Mm-hmm.
reputation for, and not the other. And so I was really relieved, but it could have gone the other way.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it really could have.
I think that the concern for the child's safety does come up in a lot of our trainings, including, caregivers care about the children that are in their home, and it's hard to see kids have a hard time. It's hard to see kids get bullied, or, any of the other negative repercussions that sometimes come from coming out at a young age. And I do think that that's why another crucial aspect to caregiving for a LGBTQ kiddo is your ability to advocate.
Right.
Luckily, there are so many organizations that can support you in that, and, laws and backing that you have. It is a different time than whenever were needing to advocate for those boys. And I think that is something that is crucial well, I say before taking in an LGBTQ youth, but I mean, if a child comes out to you, just being able to step up. And what's awesome is that's already a crucial aspect of being a foster parent. We're
Right.
already huge advocates. So we're already in a great, state of mind, personality to stand up to schools if needed.
Right. I've
No,
met so many
absolutely.
caregivers who have found out that they're particularly I have met a bunch of caregivers who have reached out to me because their children are transgender, or start wearing boys' clothes or something
Mhm.
that's a little gender nonconforming, and the number one thing I get is the same as like if a child gets a new diagnosis, they say, okay, so now what? Like now, what classes do I need? Put me in the training. I'm ready to go. Which I think is just the thing that foster parents do is we love our kids, all of the kids, and we want to make sure that they're safe.
Well, the young man that I told you, his first big move was to wear makeup.
Mhm.
I actually told him, I said, you're going to have girls that are going to be really angry with you. And he went, why girls? And I said, because you got prettier eyelashes than girls at school. When he had mascara on
Good for
his
him.
eyelashes, oh my God, you just covered those eyelashes. And so we were able to have some fun too, and just say, my goodness, your eyelashes are just incredible.
Mhm.
And he was very proud of that. And he'd walk by me and he'd just go, flip those eyes.
Aw, felt
And
good about it.
Yeah.
yeah, he felt good about it. And so we were able to lighten it up a little bit, but we like to laugh in our family anyway. So we laugh at anybody, but we sure can laugh with people. And so it was kind of an adventure. Again, I wasn't prepared for, but we made the best of it. But anything that we can do or that we can help caregivers become better prepared or know where to go. And you're right, Seth, there are a lot of organizations out there and certainly many programs within the federal government, the Children's Bureau, and that are paying attention to these. Certainly the human trafficking world
Yes.
that work to combat that. I was on the board of directors of the Safe Human Rights Coalition, and that's what we do is work at human trafficking and provide the services and supports that those folks that are identified then need in order to be assimilated over a period of time back into normalcy for whatever that might be for them. But I share, my heart goes to them too, because they've been failed in so many ways, usually. And the system foster care system failed
Yes.
and didn't protect them the way it tries to protect most kids. So I think our time is about up. So I'm going to give y'all each another opportunity to say whatever you want to say. And then I'll close out the show.
Oh, I guess I'll go first. Thank you so much for having us. If you are a caregiver out there who would like to learn more about how you can support LGBTQ youth, I really encourage you to reach out to seek those resources. HRC, GLISEN, GLEN, PFLAG, even FosterAdopt Connect. I would really encourage you to do so. You don't have to know everything about how to parent an LGBTQ kiddo. If you are open and affirming, we can pretty much fill in the rest. And these kids really need you. So I would encourage you to take the plunge.
Well, like Jennifer said, I'm so happy that we got to talk today. I'm very excited to be here and to be able to have this conversation. It's much needed conversation, and there are so many good people out there that are doing really amazing work. So I, like Jennifer said, I encourage you to reach out. You're always welcome to email us. We may be in Missouri, but we can figure out who you need to talk to. Yeah, just the most important thing is that we love kids and we want to make sure that they are always safe and happy and they have what they need. So thank you so much for the work that you do and for being here.
Well, I made 2 new friends today. Always a really good thing. And I hope that the 2 of you will stay in contact, right? And that we can build on the relationship, and maybe, next year, let's do another coffee with caregivers. Let's talk about maybe how things have improved. Would that be cool?
Sounds good.
That sounds great.
Thing to do, right?
Yes.
And we've got more work to do, and we know so thank you both very much for sharing your stories, and certainly your work that is so incredibly important to so many. And thanks to everybody who joined us today for this episode. We value you. We care about you. We want life to be good for all of you. Wellness and well-being are important, so remember to take care of yourselves so you can take care of others.